when the Berlin Wall fell, there was an American State Department official named Francis Fukuyama, and he wrote a very influential essay called The End of History. And for decades, capitalism was in a struggle with communism. And in his essay, Fukuyama argued that with the triumph of capitalism, we've come to the end of history, meaning we now know what humanity most strives for, which is a liberal consumer democracy, where people feel empowered to have the freedom to buy whatever they want. And this, for him, was the apex of human civilization. And this creates what is called the unipolar moment, where America is the global hegemon, and it creates a world that is heavily globalized, capitalistic, and very individualistic. And this is a very unique moment in human history. And we've come with this war in Iran to the end of this moment. All right? So let me first explain the three major characteristics of this unipolar moment. The first is what we call Pax Americana, where American power, American military might guarantee peace in the entire world. And this is unique in human history, where for the first time there was a power that was able to dominate the entire globe. And America was able to do so through three mechanisms, okay? The first is, of course, its military power, but specifically aerial supremacy, okay, which was backed up by special forces and the CIA. So the CIA was able to infiltrate every single government in the world and identify who would be loyal to the American empire and then promote this person. If there were individuals that challenged the American empire, these people were demoted or eliminated. Nations that proved problematic, for example, maybe Syria or Libya, special forces went in to sabotage the economy, and then aerial power went in to destroy the government. And so this created Pax Americana. Now, what's good about this is that it did bring peace to very problematic regions. For example, in East Asia, Japan, South Korea, North Korea, China, Vietnam did not compete against each other. They just participated in the global economy, which brought tremendous wealth and prosperity to the East Asia region. This is true also in Europe and South America as well. Okay? So air supremacy. Then you have something called surveillance. And basically what I mean by that is the internet. So believe it or not, but the internet was created not to actually help you communicate and to watch pornography. It was actually to have a mass surveillance system over the entire human population, so that the Pentagon, the military, knew exactly the vibe or the culture, the attitudes, the emotions of each region. And through social media, through mechanisms such as Facebook and Twitter, they were able to manipulate certain emotions. Okay? So the second mechanism is mass surveillance through the popularization of the internet. And the third is something called a rules-based international order. Okay, and what this means is American power hid behind multilateral organizations such as the United Nations, such as the World Bank, such as the World Trade Organization. And so people didn't notice that the American empire was dominating everything. They believed that the world was fair and just, and through logic and reason and debate, they could present their case. All right? So for the longest time, this Pax Americana provided peace and stability to the world, which brought tremendous prosperity. All right, so that's number one. Number two is the supremacy of science. So for most of human history, people were religious. They believed in gods. But with the rise of Pax Americana, science became the dominant religion of the whole world. All right, so the classic example is COVID. COVID was raging across the world, and then they introduced vaccines. Now, I teach critical thinking skills. So when I first heard about vaccines, I was a bit skeptical. I said to my friends who are Chinese and American, I said, you know, vaccines used to take about 10 years to develop. And that's when the virus is stable and have been around for centuries. But this COVID is constantly mutating, and they haven't have done enough trial research. So is it really safe to take these vaccines? And whether they were Chinese or American, their response was the same, which is, how dare you question science? You are a peasant. Have you gone to school? Have you no culture? Can you not think? Okay? And this shows you how science has become the new religion of the world. And if you think about it, the scientists that run the world, they're actually transnational priests. Okay? And science is an international brotherhood where if you're a scientist in China, you're not actually loyal to China. You're actually loyal to the international order of science, because that's how you get promoted, right? You get published in Nature or Science. If you win an award, like the Nobel Prize, that's how you get rewarded, okay? So you're better off being loyal to the brotherhood of science rather than your own nation state. And of course, it is the American Empire that controls science. And the third unique aspect of the unipolar movement is, of course, the universality of the US dollar. And it's incredible to think about, where just a piece of paper, you think it's gold, you think there's value in it. And not just you, but everyone around you. So that if you take your US dollars, you can go anywhere in the world and buy yourself a villa, or enjoy a nice vacation, or fly around. But not only that, but you aspire in life to accumulate as much US dollars as possible, right? Is there really a difference between $100 million and $100 billion? There's actually no difference. You can't spend it. But you want to achieve as much as possible, and as a result, you focus your entire life on accumulating as much as possible. Okay? So these are the three main pillars of the unipolar movement. And again, in the beginning, which was maybe the early 90s, this led to tremendous peace and prosperity throughout the world. The problem, though, is that over time, these three pillars started to decay, right? So, Pax Americana started to itself ignore the rules-based international order, which itself created, right? So America started to bomb countries such as Libya and Syria without international approval. Most recently, it went to attack Iran without even asking for the opinion of the world, without even caring what the world thought, okay? So this leads to the idea of hubris. Maybe the first generation appreciates the importance of collaboration, of consensus. But the second generation, the children, are arrogant. They have hubris. They want to enjoy their power. Okay? So that's problem number one. Supremacy of science, religion, basically it becomes a religion in itself, orthodoxy. So that science does not become the main engine of innovation in the world, it becomes the main engine of orthodoxy or suppression. And that's why for the past 20, 30 years, we've seen very little in terms of technological innovation. Don't tell me Silicon Valley is the center of innovation in the world, okay? All they do is make food delivery apps. It's been a long time since we've seen massive innovation in the world. What we've seen these past 20, 30 years is the scaling out, the popularization of innovation, right? where American technology is spread throughout the world, especially in China. But we have not seen actually major innovation in science itself. Right? And the third thing, the university of the US dollar leads to printing dollars, okay? Or just basically corruption. Where because America is able to print as much US dollars as it wants to fund its corruption, it does so, okay? So the US dollar has lessened in value. And what this means is basically it's made inequality worse, it's made corruption worse, it's made people very lazy. If you're a young person, you're like, you know what, no matter how hard I work, I'm still screwed in the end because the boomers, the older generation, have so much more money than I do. I can never catch up. So I refuse to play this game. Either I refuse to play this game, so I quit, competing, like that, or I gamble. I pray that if I put $1 million in Bitcoin, it'll go up to $10 million, or the stock market, or sports betting, okay? That's why in America, gambling has become so popular. All right? So this has led to today, basically. All right? So we shouldn't see this war against Iran as just a decision of one person, Donald Trump, or the machinations of a country, Israel. Really, this war in Iran is happening because we've come to the end of the unipolar moment because the American empire has become corrupt, self-indulgent, lazy, arrogant. All right? So, with the end of the American empire, with the end of Pax Americana, we are shifting towards a new world. And this new world, some will survive, most will not. Okay? And this is true throughout history where when empire declines and the world order is shifting, where there's a paradigm shift, people are forced to make a hard choice of either adapt or die. All right? So let me show you how the world needs to change if it is to survive. Basically, what has to happen is we have to move from an emphasis on efficiency to resilience. Okay? That is the main goal in the future. Today, it's really about how to make things as cheap as possible and get it to as many people as quickly as possible to make as much money as possible. Okay? The idea of efficiency. Generating as much profit as possible. The idea of resilience is to appreciate that there will be a series of crises, and what you need to do is focus on adapting and surviving these crises, okay? So for a nation, for a community to survive in the future, there has to be three major changes. And if you're able to make these three major changes, you will survive. If you do not make these changes, you will be eliminated, okay? It will be survival of the fittest. All right, so the first thing you need to do is move from materialism to spirituality. Right now, the entire world, these nation states, have convinced the population what matters is your material well-being. If you are driving a car, if you have a house, if you have enough food to eat, then you should shut up and obey because we're doing a good job. Okay? But in the future, governments can't do that because there are not enough resources to go around. Therefore, the government has to make you believe that what matters is your happiness, your well-being, your spirituality. And that usually means a renewed focus on religion. Okay? That's the first thing. Second thing is to move from a system of individuality to community and family. All right, and what this means is today what you're taught in school, what you're taught in society is what matters is you, me, okay? The ego. If it's doing well for me, it's good. I shouldn't care about other people. In the future, you have to focus on building a community, on helping others. Okay? And the last major shift is from the old to the young. Okay, and this is very simple, and this is actually the hardest thing to do, which is like today, most countries, especially the wealthy Western industrial nations, are controlled by the baby boomers, the elderly, the gerontocracy. They have all the money, they have all the power, but for society to thrive in the future, this power needs to shift to a younger generation, ideally maybe in the 30s, okay? The younger the better. And you think this is easy to do, it's not. Because first of all, these baby boomers have access to the best healthcare in the world, they have a lot of money, and they really enjoy living, and they're also really selfish, okay? So this is actually the hardest problem to solve for most Western societies. How do you transfer power from the old to the young? And quite honestly, historically, we've never ever faced this problem before. Never. Because the old simply don't live that long, okay? Now, baby boomers are living to at least 100 years old. So they have another 20 years ahead of them in power. Meanwhile, the young cannot develop the experience and expertise in order to lead the nation. So whichever nation actually figures out this problem first, how do you give the old and give power to the young, then will most likely thrive in the new world that's coming. And if you were to ask me which nation would most likely achieve this first, I would say Japan. And the reason is very simple. Because in Japan, this problem is the most pressing. They are the eldest population. They have the oldest population in the world. And so they need to resolve this issue really, really quickly. Okay? And maybe in the next 5-10 years, and I think that Japan will actually resolve this issue. But it may be the only nation that's able to resolve this issue because it's so difficult. You love your grandparents. Do you want to see your grandparents die? Of course not. Okay? You're going against